Long before the galaxy whispered of human ghosts, Earth was a place of fire and despair. When the alien fleets descended, they came like storms. Skies burned red, oceans boiled, and continents cracked. The people of Earth fought bravely, but the galaxy was too vast, too powerful. The final war was called humanity's end, and for the aliens it was a celebration. They believed the stubborn species had been erased, their home shattered into silence. The Council declared it so, and the galaxy moved on. But the truth was far darker, and it hid deep beneath Earth's ruins. Beneath the ashes of old cities, humanity did not die. Tunnels stretched for miles under the surface, carved in secret while the world above crumbled. In the shadows, survivors gathered. Families broken by war, soldiers who refused surrender, and scientists who swore humanity would rise again. They lived in hunger, in fear, but also in determination. They whispered one vow that echoed through every chamber. We are not finished. Generations passed in the underground. Children were born who had never seen the sky. They were raised on stories of Earth as it was: blue oceans, green forests, shining cities. To them, these were not just memories. They were promises. And as they grew, their hatred for the Council grew with them. The aliens thought they had ended humanity. Instead, they had forged something harder, something stronger. In hidden bunkers, engineers worked with whatever pieces they could salvage. Broken alien tech was studied, melted, and reshaped. Old human blueprints were reborn with new fury. At first they built weapons for survival, rifles and armor for raids against alien patrols. But their vision grew bolder. They began to design ships. Massive warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that carried not only firepower but the memory of Earth itself. These became known in whispers as the ghost fleets. The galaxy never believed the rumors. A destroyed species cannot build warships, they said. The Council laughed at smugglers who spoke of shadowy human vessels striking at the edge of space. Yet, here and there, strange incidents occurred. An alien convoy disappearing without a trace. Patrols reporting black ships that vanished into void. Entire outposts silenced overnight. The Council explained it away. Pirates, rebels, malfunctions. But those who had seen the ships with their own eyes spoke with terror. They said the ships moved with a hunger, as if alive, as if guided by the ghosts of Earth itself. In the underground, the leaders of humanity sharpened their purpose. One among them stood taller than the rest, a soldier who had survived the final days of Earth's burning. His name was Reyes. As a boy he had seen his home destroyed. As a man he carried the fire of revenge in his veins. To the survivors, he became more than a commander. He became a symbol, the Iron Ghost. Under his command, the ghost fleets grew. His voice carried through the bunkers. We were left for dead. But death is not our fate. The galaxy will remember us. Reyes taught his people patience. He knew humanity could not rise too soon. They had to wait, hidden, while the galaxy believed them gone. In silence, they built. In silence, they trained. In silence, they prepared for the day when the Council would see them again. That day, he promised, would shake the stars. The fleets were not just weapons. They were a declaration. Each ship bore the scars of Earth's fall, but each one carried new strength. Engines forged from alien design yet improved with human creativity. Armor layered with alloys unknown to the galaxy. Weapons capable of tearing apart capital ships in seconds. And at the heart of every vessel was something even more terrifying, a core of human AI, a mind shaped by the memories of war. These ships did not simply fight. They hunted. As the fleets expanded, humans launched small strikes on the edges of alien space. Nothing large enough to reveal themselves fully, but enough to test their strength. Outposts fell without warning. Fleets vanished into nothing. And with each strike, the legend of the ghost fleets grew. The aliens who survived spoke of voices in the darkness, human voices whispering before the kill. Some swore they heard entire crews screaming before their ships were torn apart. Fear began to creep back into the galaxy. But still the Council denied the truth. In their great halls, they mocked the idea of humanity's return. Extinct, they repeated. Extinct and forgotten. Yet even as they laughed, reports continued to pile up. Patterns emerged. The strikes were not random. They were careful, deliberate. They were the work of a mind with purpose. And the purpose was vengeance. For the humans, it was never about survival alone. It was about memory. Every child raised underground was taught the names of lost cities, of fallen nations, of families burned in the war. They carried those names like weapons in their hearts. The ghost fleets were more than machines. They were monuments of anger, each ship built to remind the galaxy of the mistake it had made. Humanity was not just alive. Humanity was waiting. Now, as the unknown fleet moved toward alien space, the whispers grew louder. The aliens who had laughed before now felt the cold of dread. For if the ghost fleets were real, then the galaxy faced something far worse than it had ever known. A species that had been burned, broken, nearly erased, and yet had returned with power greater than ever before. A species that remembered everything. On board the flagship, Reyes stood before the bridge windows, watching stars pass like silent witnesses. His officers worked quietly, their faces hard with focus. Around them, the walls of the ship hummed with power, alive with the energy of revenge. Reyes placed his hand on the console, feeling the pulse of the vessel beneath him. To him, it was not just metal. It was the soul of his people, the voice of Earth rising once again. He whispered to himself, a vow spoken long ago in the ruins of his home. They planned our end. But we are not the ones ending. And as the fleet moved deeper into the galaxy, the fear spread wider, reaching every empire, every leader, every world. The ghosts of Earth had awakened. And they were coming. The alien patrol ship Arvellan drifted at the edge of controlled space. It was a small vessel, crewed by 30 officers, armed only for skirmishes. Its job was simple, to watch the borders, to guard against smugglers or pirates. For centuries, no true threat had ever come this far. The crew lived in boredom, half asleep as the stars stretched endlessly before them. But that night, the void was not silent. The sensors picked up a shadow. At first it was faint, like a smudge in the darkness. The navigator frowned, tapping the console again and again, thinking it was an error. But the shadow grew larger. The captain of the Arvellan, a reptilian alien with scales that gleamed under the bridge lights, leaned forward in his chair. "Identify it," he ordered. The ship's systems tried to scan, but each time the data blurred, as if the object refused to be measured. The crew muttered nervously. One officer whispered, It's a fleet." The captain snapped. "Impossible. No fleet moves through void space. That is death." Yet even as he spoke, the shadow split into shapes, dozens of them, moving in perfect formation. Then they saw it. Out of the blackness, a colossal warship emerged. Its surface was covered in dark armor that swallowed the starlight. Its edges were sharp like a blade, its design alien yet strangely familiar. And on its side, glowing faintly in blue, was a symbol the crew had never expected to see again, a circle with a single line across it. The mark of Earth. The crew froze. The captain's blood ran cold. He remembered the stories told long ago, of humans, of their final war, of their destruction. The galaxy had declared them gone, erased from existence. But here was a ship carrying their forgotten symbol. He snarled, trying to hide his fear. "Open a channel. Demand their identification." The communications officer tried. Static filled the bridge. Then a voice came through, broken but clear, speaking in a language none of them had heard in centuries. It was human. The words were slow, heavy with warning. "This is not your galaxy anymore." Silence followed. The crew stared at each other, unsure if they had heard correctly. The captain roared, "Charge weapons. Fire at them before they close." The Arvellan's cannons lit up, beams of energy rushing toward the black warship. but the beams vanished before impact, swallowed by some kind of invisible shield. The human ship did not even move. Then it answered. A single pulse of red light shot forward. The crew had no time to scream. The pulse tore through the Arvellan, cutting the patrol ship in half. In seconds, 30 lives were erased. The human ship glided past the wreckage without slowing, its fleet following behind in perfect silence. The destruction of the Arvellan was only the beginning. Within hours, 3 more patrols vanished. The Council's networks lit up with warnings, reports of black warships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Survivors were rare, but those who escaped told the same story. A human voice had spoken before the end, repeating the same chilling words, "This is not your galaxy anymore." Panic spread quickly. Fleets were dispatched to investigate, but most never returned. The alien empires who once mocked the rumors now trembled. If these ships were truly human, then the Council's greatest failure had returned to haunt them. But how could humanity, thought extinct, wield such power? On a border colony of the Drath Confederacy, alarms screamed as a massive shadow blocked out the stars. The colonists looked up to see the Black Fleet descending, dozens of ships blotting out the skies. Soldiers rushed to defensive positions, weapons primed. But the human ships did not fire. Instead, a single transmission played across every screen, every speaker, every device. It was a man's voice, cold and steady. "We are not here to destroy. Not yet. We are here to remind you. Humanity is alive. Humanity remembers." The message ended. The fleet rose back into the stars, leaving the colony untouched but drowned in terror. The Drath soldiers stood frozen, unsure whether they had been spared or warned. In their hearts, they knew the truth. This was not mercy. This was a promise. Meanwhile, inside the flagship of the Ghost Fleet, Admiral Reyes stood with his officers. Around him, the bridge glowed with pale light, filled with silent crew who worked with perfect discipline. The destruction of the Arvellan had been effortless, almost too easy. Reyes knew fear was spreading across the galaxy. That was the plan. Humanity's return was not meant to be quiet. It was meant to echo like thunder. One of his officers turned, a young woman with sharp eyes. "Sir, the Council will not stay silent. They will send fleets against us." Reyes nodded. "Good. Let them come. Every battle will carry our message further. Every world will learn what the galaxy tried to erase. We were planned to end, but we will not end. We will rise." Far away, in the council chamber, the alien leaders gathered once more. Reports flashed across the room, filled with images of destroyed patrols, black ships, and that haunting human message. Fear turned into fury. "We cannot allow them to spread," shouted one leader. "They are only a remnant. Crush them before they grow," another leader whispered. "But what if they are stronger than before? What if they have built weapons beyond our imagination?" The chamber filled with shouting, but no answer could silence the truth. Humanity had returned, and no one knew how strong they truly were. As the debate raged, another transmission arrived. It was not from any known channel. It played across the entire chamber in human language, translated by the Council systems without request. The voice was calm, but filled with weight. "You ended our world. You thought we were gone. But you cannot kill what refuses to die. We are the ghosts of Earth. And we have come home." The chamber fell into silence once more. Leaders looked at each other with dread. The first encounter had ended, but this was only the beginning. And far across the stars, the Ghost Fleet moved like a storm. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so restless. The Great Hall, built to hold leaders of 100 empires, echoed with noise. Voices clashed like storms, each leader shouting above the other. The destruction of the Arvellan patrol ship had shaken the galaxy, but now the rumors were undeniable. Human warships were real. The ghost fleets were not myth. They had returned. Holograms floated above the central floor, showing wrecked patrols, destroyed colonies, and the terrifying shape of black human warships. Each image burned fear into the chamber. For centuries, the council had ruled with strength and certainty. Now, for the first time, doubt filled their hearts. The chancellor of the Vadran Empire stood tall, his metallic skin reflecting the chamber's blue light. He slammed his staff against the ground, demanding silence. These are remnants. Shadows clinging to a dead world. They cannot face the united strength of the galaxy. We crushed them once, and we will crush them again. His voice was full of anger, but behind his words was unease. He had seen the reports. A single human warship had destroyed patrols in seconds. And the fleets were not small. They were massive, coordinated, disciplined. This was not the work of survivors hiding in caves. This was the work of an organized, rebuilt civilization. From the far side of the chamber, the Drath Prime Minister hissed in reply. His long limbs waved as he spoke. You are blind, Chancellor. Did you not see the colony spared by their fleet? They left it untouched but filled with fear. That is strategy, not desperation. They are not pirates. They are not remnants. They are preparing something greater. Perhaps they are stronger than even us now. The hall erupted again. Some leaders shouted for immediate war, others demanded negotiation. Fear spread like a sickness, twisting every argument. For every voice calling humanity weak, another reminded them of old history, the Great War centuries ago. Billions of alien lives had been lost to defeat Earth, and even then it had required the unity of every empire. If the humans had survived and grown stronger in the shadows, what chance did the galaxy have now? An elder from the KRYL Dominion, her voice shaking with age, rose from her seat. You call them ghosts, but they are flesh. They are vengeance. The humans are not interested in trade or peace. They are interested in memory. And memory is sharper than any blade. Her words silenced many in the hall. At that moment, the chamber's main screen flickered. A transmission forced its way through the council's secure channels. The guards scrambled, trying to block it, but the signal overpowered every defense. The lights dimmed. On the screen appeared the silhouette of a massive warship, its armor black as night. Slowly, a man's figure stepped into view. His face was scarred, his eyes burning with a cold fire. The chamber froze in silence. The man spoke in human language, translated instantly by the council systems. We are not your shadows. We are not your forgotten. We are the children of Earth, and we have not forgiven. His voice was steady, calm, yet heavier than thunder. You planned our end. You believed us gone. But you will learn a truth you tried to bury. Humanity cannot be erased. Before anyone could respond, the transmission ended. The screen returned to its usual glow, but the silence remained. Leaders who had shouted with fury moments ago now sat frozen, their bodies stiff with fear. The image of the man's scarred face lingered in their minds. The Chancellor of the Vadran Empire tried to regain control. We cannot show weakness. If we bend now, the humans will tear through us like they did that patrol. We must strike before their numbers grow. Assemble the fleets. Burn what remains of them. But his words no longer carried the same power. Too many leaders had seen the truth in the human fleet's precision. Too many knew what history had already cost them. The Drath Prime Minister leaned forward, his voice quiet but sharp. And what if we attack, Chancellor? What if our fleets meet theirs, and we fall as before? Do you remember the last war? Do you remember the rivers of blood? Humanity does not fight like us. They do not stop when hope dies. They fight even when defeat is certain. If they have built these ships in silence, then they are ready for us. Perhaps more ready than we are for them. Fear rippled through the chamber. Some demanded spies be sent to learn the humans' true numbers. Others begged for immediate surrender, terrified that humanity's vengeance would erase their worlds. The debate spiraled into chaos, each leader protecting their own empire, their own survival. In a quiet corner of the chamber, a younger leader of a small empire whispered to her advisor, "Perhaps we should ally with them. Perhaps standing with humanity is safer than standing against them. The advisor stared at her in shock. The thought of joining the very species the galaxy had once sworn to destroy was unthinkable. But desperation made strange allies. As the arguments continued, word reached the chamber of another disaster. A fleet of 30 ships had been dispatched to track the humans. None had returned. The only signal left behind was a final transmission, filled with static, then a human voice whispering, "You cannot hide from us." The chamber fell silent once again. The truth was becoming clear. Humanity was not only back, they were hunting. One by one, leaders realized what this meant. Their borders, their fleets, their colonies, all were vulnerable. The galaxy had grown lazy in its power, fat in its peace. Humanity had grown sharp in its pain, strong in its silence. The council, once unbreakable, was now divided. Some wanted war, some wanted peace, some wanted betrayal. But none could deny the fear twisting in their hearts. In the shadows above the chamber, the great banners of the empires hung still. They once symbolized strength and unity. Now they seemed like fragile cloth, ready to tear at the slightest wind. The humans had not yet fired on the council itself, but already they had broken its unity. Already, they had spread fear deeper than any weapon could. And far away, across the stars, Admiral Reyes watched from the bridge of his flagship. Reports of the council's chaos filled his screens. He allowed himself the smallest of smiles. Fear was the first step. Soon would come the second. The galaxy thought humanity was finished. But now the galaxy itself trembled. The council was no longer the master of the stars. Fear was. And fear had the face of humanity. Deep within the flagship of the Ghost Fleet, silence ruled. The ship, a massive dreadnought known as Erebus, drifted through the stars like a shadow. Its armor carried the scars of battles long past, its engines glowed faint red, and its cannons rested like sleeping beasts. Inside the command chamber, officers worked with strict discipline, their voices low, their eyes sharp. At the center of it all stood the man the galaxy feared but did not yet know, Admiral Reyes. Reyes was not young. His face carried lines etched by war and loss, and a scar cut across his left cheek like a mark of fire. His eyes, however, were not tired. They burned with the same relentless will that had carried humanity through its darkest nights. To his people, he was not only a commander. He was a symbol. The Iron Ghost, the man who had survived Earth's fall and returned to lead them from the shadows. He stood before the wide viewing window, watching the stars drift slowly by. Around him, his officers waited in silence. Reyes finally spoke, his voice calm but heavy. The council trembles. Their unity is cracking. Their fear is spreading faster than fire. But fear is only the beginning. The galaxy must learn that humanity is not only alive, it is stronger than before. One of his officers, Commander Hale, stepped forward. She was young but sharp, her eyes fierce with loyalty. "Sir, reports confirm that multiple fleets have been destroyed. Their patrols fall in minutes. Our ships remain untouched. But the council will not stop. They will send larger forces. They will try to crush us before we grow." Reyes nodded. "They already fear us. But soon they will understand what fear truly means." He turned, facing his officers. "We are not fighting to survive. We are not fighting to prove our existence. We are fighting to claim what was stolen. They burned our world. They erased our families. And yet here we stand. Humanity was meant to end, but we are the beginning." The officers slammed their fists to their chests in salute. They did not see themselves as survivors. They saw themselves as avengers. Every ship, every weapon, every man and woman in the Ghost Fleet carried the memory of Earth's destruction. Their cause was not survival, it was justice. Reyes walked across the command chamber, his boots echoing on the steel floor. His gaze fell on a holographic map of the galaxy, glowing with shifting stars. Red markers showed the alien empires, Blue lights marked the ghost fleet's hidden movements. Reyes raised his hand and pointed to the heart of the map, the Council's homeworld. This is where their power lives. This is where their lies live. And this is where their fear will grow strongest. But we cannot strike yet. Not until the galaxy sees what we are. Not until they understand that Earth does not forgive. His officers listened, their faces hard with focus. Each one of them had lost family to the old war. Each one carried scars. And yet, in Reyes they found hope. He was the man who had refused to die, the man who had led humanity from ruin into strength. His presence was enough to make them believe they could face the galaxy itself. Far away, the Council still debated in fear. They did not know the name Reyes. They did not know his face. They only saw shadows, only heard voices. But soon they would know. Soon the galaxy would speak his name with terror. In the lower decks of Erebus, soldiers trained relentlessly. The clang of steel echoed as they practiced combat, as they drilled in silence. They knew they were not just soldiers. They were the blade of vengeance. In the hangars, fighters stood ready, their sleek forms humming with energy. Mechanics worked without rest, polishing armor, tuning engines, preparing for war. The Ghost Fleet was not large compared to the galaxy's armies, but it was sharper, more disciplined, more dangerous. Reyes had built it not as a mirror of alien fleets but as something different. Every ship worked like a predator, fast and deadly. Every pilot fought like someone with nothing left to lose. Every battle was planned not just to win but to terrify. One night, Reyes walked through the barracks. Soldiers stood when he entered, their eyes following him with respect. He stopped before a young recruit, no more than 18, who stood stiff with nervousness. "Why are you here, soldier?" Reyes asked. The recruit swallowed and said, "Because my mother told me never to forget Earth, sir. Because I will not let her memory die." Reyes placed a hand on his shoulder. "Good. Remember this always. We do not fight for ourselves alone. We fight for every voice the galaxy tried to silence." Reyes left the barracks, his heart heavy but strong. He knew the cost of what lay ahead. Humanity's path was war, and war meant sacrifice. But he also knew there was no other path. If humanity did not rise now, they would remain shadows forever. He would not allow that. Back in the command chamber, a new report arrived. Another alien fleet destroyed, this time larger, stronger, yet still broken in minutes. The message was the same as before, sent to every surviving channel. "This is not your galaxy anymore." Reyes heard the report and gave a single order. "Spread it wider. Let every empire know. Let every child learn. Humanity has returned." For the first time in centuries, the name of Earth spread across the stars. Some spoke it with fear. Some with disbelief. And some, secretly, with hope. Among the weaker empires, whispers began. Perhaps humanity could be an ally, perhaps siding with them was safer than facing them. But among the great powers, fear turned to rage. Plans for retaliation grew. The galaxy was dividing, and Reyes knew it. That was his intention. A divided galaxy was easier to conquer. As he stood once more before the wide viewing window, stars burning like distant fires, Reyes whispered to himself, "They thought I would die in the ruins of Earth. They thought our people would scatter to dust. But I carry every life, every memory, every tear. I am not one man. I am Earth itself. And the galaxy will remember us." The Ghost Fleet moved forward, silent and unstoppable. And with every step, the legend of Admiral Reyes grew. The galaxy did not yet know his name, but soon it would be carved into every star. The human commander had risen. And the universe trembled. The Ghost Fleet had already become a nightmare in the minds of the galaxy. Fleets vanished in minutes, colonies trembled under the shadow of black warships, and the Council itself was torn apart by fear and doubt. But what the galaxy did not know was that humanity's true strength had not yet been revealed. The fleets, the battles, the terrifying precision, these were only the opening strikes. Admiral Reyes had kept the real secret hidden deep in the dark, waiting for the right moment to unleash it. Inside the flagship Erebus, the command chamber glowed with dim red lights. A report had just arrived from the scouts. An alien fleet of 70 ships had been destroyed, their wreckage scattered across the stars. Once again, the humans had left behind their chilling message. But this time, Reyes gave a new order. "It is time. Prepare the Arkansas." His officers stiffened at the words. 4 months, maybe even years, they had trained, knowing about the Ark only in whispers. Few had ever seen it. Even fewer understood what it truly was. The Ark was not a ship in the traditional sense. It was a weapon, a living memory of Earth. Hidden in the blackest void where no light reached, it had waited. Larger than any dreadnought, darker than any shadow, it had been built in silence after the fall of Earth, piece by piece, carried across generations. The Ark was more than steel and fire, it was the last dream of humanity. As the order spread through the fleet, silence filled the soldiers' hearts. They had always trusted Admiral Reyes, but the Ark was something different, something almost mythical. What power had humanity built in the dark that the galaxy had never seen? Meanwhile, across the stars, the Council prepared its largest counterattack. After weeks of debate and fear, the leaders of the strongest empires had agreed to act. They formed a coalition fleet, a massive force of 500 ships drawn from every corner of the galaxy. It was a force meant not only to destroy the humans but also to prove to the galaxy that the Council was still in control. The fleet gathered at the edge of the Vadran system, weapons charged, commanders ready. They would crush the Ghost Fleet in one blow. But Admiral Reyes knew their plan long before they moved. Human spies had infiltrated their networks, their signals, their very strategies. Every word the Council spoke reached his ears. He knew where they would strike. He knew when they would strike. And he knew exactly what weapon to use against them. On the day of the battle, the coalition fleet advanced in proud formation, their ships burning like suns against the black. Their commanders spoke with confidence, telling their crews that the humans would be destroyed today, that the terror would finally end. But then the stars themselves seemed to shift. The shadows deepened, the light dimmed, and the fleet slowed in confusion. Something vast was moving in the void ahead of them. The Ark appeared. It was not a ship, it was a mountain of black steel, larger than any city, stretching across the stars. Its surface shimmered with strange lines, glowing faintly blue, like rivers of light running through its skin. It made the coalition's 500 ships look like insects before a storm. Fear rippled through the alien crews as they saw it for the first time. None of them had imagined humanity could build something so massive, so terrifying. Inside the Ark, thousands of human soldiers waited. Unlike the Ghost Fleet, which was built for speed and precision, the Ark was built for devastation. Its cannons were colossal, its shields nearly impenetrable. But more than that, it carried something no other ship in the galaxy possessed, the Singularity Core. A weapon born from the ruins of Earth, a weapon forged from desperation and genius. It was not just designed to destroy ships. It was designed to bend space itself. The coalition fleet opened fire. Hundreds of beams of energy and plasma rained down upon the Arkansas. The void lit up with fire. But when the smoke cleared, the Ark still stood, untouched. Its shields glowed like a burning horizon, swallowing every strike. Then the Ark answered. One cannon fired. Just one. A beam of red light surged across the void, cutting through 20 alien ships in a single sweep. Another cannon fired, erasing a formation of cruisers as if they had never existed. Panic spread among the coalition. Commanders shouted orders, ships scrambled, but the Ark moved forward slowly, steadily, unstoppable. Then Reyes gave the order. Activate the core. The Ark's center glowed, brighter and brighter, until the very stars seemed to bend. Space itself twisted, pulling ships into strange patterns, breaking their formations. Alien crews screamed as their systems failed, their engines tearing apart under the stress of the warped void. And then, with a flash like the birth of a star, an entire section of the coalition fleet was erased, vanished into nothing, swallowed by the singularity. Silence filled the battlefield. Hundreds of ships had become dust in seconds. The survivors broke formation, fleeing in every direction. Their commanders shouted for retreat, but even retreat was chaos. The Ark's cannons continued to fire, tearing through any ship that tried to resist. When the battle ended, only a handful of ships survived. They fled, carrying with them stories of the impossible weapon, of the Ark, of humanity's true power. The galaxy would know. The galaxy would tremble. Back aboard Erebus, Admiral Reyes stood watching the battle's aftermath. His officers were silent, their faces pale with awe. The Ark had proven its power. The Council's greatest fleet had been destroyed in hours. Humanity had shown the galaxy a weapon beyond imagination. Reyes finally spoke. This is not our revenge. This is our warning. The galaxy must learn, we will not be erased again. Far away, in the council chamber, leaders stared in horror as reports arrived. Their proud fleet, their great unity, had been shattered. Entire empires wept as news spread. Some leaders screamed for surrender. Others demanded the Ark be destroyed at all costs. But all of them knew the truth. The humans were no longer a shadow. They were a storm. And the Ark was their thunder. As the stars burned quietly once more, the galaxy whispered a new name with fear, the name of humanity's secret weapon. The Ark had awakened. The council chamber was silent at first, but it was not the silence of calm. It was the silence of fear, heavy and choking, pressing down on every leader in the hall. The reports had arrived, carried by the few survivors of the coalition fleet. 500 ships had been sent to destroy humanity's ghost fleet. 500 had gone to prove the galaxy's strength. Almost all of them were gone. What returned were fragments of fleets, scattered crews, broken vessels, and terrified commanders who spoke of something no one could believe. They spoke of the Ark. The great holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered, showing images of the battle. The massive human weapon, larger than any city, loomed across the void. Cannons that erased fleets. A core that bent space itself. Entire formations torn apart in seconds. The sight alone made the chamber tremble. The leaders stared in disbelief, some whispering, some frozen in silence, others shaking their heads as if refusing to accept the truth. The Chancellor of the Vadran Empire stood, his voice desperate. This is impossible. No species could build such a weapon in silence. Not without resources, not without allies. Humanity was supposed to be extinct. Who helped them? Who betrayed us? His words echoed, but no answer came. The Drath Prime Minister hissed loudly. No one helped them. Do you not see? They needed no one. They built in the shadows while we looked away. They hid in places we did not search. And now, they rise stronger than any of us. We mocked them. We forgot them. And now they return as our executioners. The chamber erupted with voices. Some shouted for immediate surrender, others screamed for total war. The smaller empires trembled, their leaders begging for protection, fearing that humanity's vengeance would soon burn their worlds. The larger empires argued among themselves, each blaming the other for underestimating the humans. Unity was gone. Trust was gone. The Council, which once commanded the galaxy, now cracked under its own fear. An elder from the KRYL Dominion rose slowly, her voice trembling. We are already defeated. Do you not understand? Humanity has no need to destroy us. They only need to let fear do their work. Already, we are breaking apart. Already, our strength is shattered. Her words were true. In the shadows of the chamber, whispers grew of betrayal. Some leaders quietly planned to send messages to Admiral Reyes, to offer secret alliances in exchange for survival. Others plotted to abandon the Council altogether, to protect only their own borders. The unity that had once crushed humanity was now nothing but fragments. The Chancellor slammed his staff against the floor, demanding silence. We cannot surrender. If we kneel now, humanity will not stop. They will demand more and more until nothing remains. We must rebuild our fleets. We must combine our weapons. We must find their weakness. Every weapon has a weakness. His voice was strong, but his eyes betrayed his fear. He knew the council had little time. The Ark had already proven that fleets were useless. What weapon could stand against something that bent space itself? In the far corner, the leader of a small empire whispered to her advisor, "The humans spared one colony. They left it untouched. Perhaps they are not monsters. Perhaps if we stand with them, they will protect us." Her words spread like fire among the weaker empires. Some began to wonder if humanity was not only a threat but also a possible shield against the larger, oppressive empires of the Council. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw an alternative to Council power. And that alternative was Earth. The chamber descended into chaos. Leaders shouted, accusations flew, guards struggled to maintain order. Old rivalries resurfaced. The Council was not united against humanity anymore. It was divided, broken, each empire thinking only of itself. Then, suddenly, the chamber's main screen flickered. Another transmission forced its way through, just as before. The guards tried to block it, but their systems failed. The chamber darkened, and once again, the scarred face of Admiral Reyes filled the hall. His voice came steady, calm, heavy with power. "You tried to erase us. You burned our world. You hunted our people. But we endured. And now you see the truth. Your fleets fall. Your unity shatters. Your fear grows. This is the price of your betrayal." He paused, letting his words sink deep. The leaders shifted uncomfortably, none daring to speak. "We are not here to ask. We are not here to beg. We are here to remind you, Earth is not forgotten. And Earth does not forgive." The screen went dark. Silence followed, heavier than before. No one dared to move, no one dared to speak. The leaders stared at one another, each seeing the same truth in the other's eyes. The Council was no longer the master of the galaxy. Humanity was. After a long moment, the Drath Prime Minister finally spoke, his voice low and bitter. "The Council is broken. We are no longer united. We cannot stand against them together. Perhaps we never could." One by one, leaders began leaving the chamber, their faces grim, their alliances shattered. Some would go home to prepare for war. Some would secretly send envoys to humanity, hoping to survive by betrayal. And some would simply wait, paralyzed by fear, unable to act. The once great chamber, built to hold the voice of the galaxy, now echoed only with emptiness. The Council, which had stood for centuries as the galaxy's strength, had been broken not by weapons, but by fear. Far away, aboard the Erebus, Admiral Reyes stood at the viewing window, watching the stars. Reports of the Council's collapse reached him, and he allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had planned humanity's end. But now, the galaxy itself was breaking apart. The Council was no longer his enemy. Fear was his weapon, and the galaxy was already falling under its blade. The galaxy was calm, too calm. Across the stars, hundreds of alien empires controlled worlds, fleets, and trade routes. They thought their power was unshakable, their order unbreakable. Yet in that calm, whispers moved like shadows. Whispers of something impossible. Whispers of ghosts. On the central world of the Galactic Council, the most powerful leaders gathered inside a grand chamber. The walls were covered with silver stone, the floor glowing with blue light that marked each empire's seat. The hall was filled with voices in many alien tongues, all speaking of the same matter, humanity. For centuries, the Council had believed humanity was gone. Earth, a small world compared to the empires of the galaxy, had once resisted them. The humans had fought with passion, with fire in their eyes, but the galaxy was too vast, too united against them. After a long and brutal war, Earth burned. Billions were lost. Cities became dust, oceans blackened, and the skies turned silent. The Council declared victory. Humanity was marked in history as extinct. But now, strange reports reached the chamber. Deep space sensors, ancient machines placed on the edges of the galaxy, had awakened after long silence. They spoke of massive objects moving through void space. Warships. And not just any warships, ships bearing the forgotten markings of Earth. The Council laughed at first. The Chancellor of the Vadran Empire, a tall being with metallic skin, raised his voice. Impossible. Earth is ash. Their people are gone. Perhaps pirates use their old symbols to spread fear. The hall agreed, yet unease grew behind their laughter. Then the chamber dimmed. A hologram appeared, shaky and distorted. It was the recording from one of the sensor outposts. Against the blackness of space, a fleet emerged. Dozens of ships, black as night, sharp as blades, moving with perfect formation. They carried the old symbol, the blue circle of Earth. The recording ended before any measurement could be taken. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Council could not explain what it had seen. Some leaders whispered of forgotten colonies. Others spoke of rebels pretending to be humans. But deep down, each of them felt something colder. They felt the weight of fear. In that silence, a faint signal arrived through the Council's networks. It was not alien. It was not coded in any known dialect. It was human. The voice was low, filled with steel and fire. It said only one line. You thought we were gone. You thought wrong. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted for fleets to be sent immediately. Others demanded negotiations. The word revenge was spoken more than once. Every empire feared what would happen if humanity had truly survived. On the edges of the galaxy, the unknown fleet moved silently. Its ships carried scars of old wars, but their weapons were new, deadly and precise. Their engines glowed with power unseen before. These were not ordinary warships. These were vessels built in shadows, forged in pain, and carried by memories of a dying Earth. Among the aliens, legends of humanity had never fully died. Soldiers told stories of battles where human warriors fought even when hopeless, even when surrounded, even when their defeat was certain. Humans had something the galaxy never understood, an unbroken will. Perhaps that was why they could not be forgotten. Now that will had returned, and the galaxy trembled. On a distant observation post, a crew of alien scientists watched the strange fleet approach. Their instruments failed, their screens flickered, and their power died. The crew screamed into comms for help. The last image they sent was terrifying. A single massive warship, shaped like a spear, turned toward the post. Its side opened, revealing weapons glowing red. In less than a heartbeat, the post vanished into fire. The fleet did not slow. It moved forward, steady, unstoppable. News spread faster than light. Worlds panicked. Armies mobilized. Traders abandoned routes. Across the galaxy, whispers became screams. The humans have returned. Back in the council chamber, leaders argued louder. If they are alive, we must finish what we started, shouted one. Fools, replied another. If they defeated the observation post so easily, then they are stronger than ever. We must find peace before they destroy us all. The Chancellor of the Vadran Empire banged his staff on the ground. No peace. We ended them once, we can end them again. Yet even in his voice, there was doubt. Because everyone knew, the first time, the galaxy had to unite against Earth. And even then, it had not been easy. Billions of alien lives had been lost in that war. If humanity had risen again, after centuries of silence, what strength did they now hold? Far from the chamber, in the darkness of space, the human fleet continued its march. The ships did not broadcast signals, did not answer hails. They only moved forward, their path leading directly into the heart of alien territory. Their silence was louder than any threat. Their presence was war itself. And hidden within the flagship, deep in its command chamber, a lone figure stood watching the stars. His face was hardened, scarred by battles long past. His eyes carried the fire of 1,000 dead worlds. He did not smile. He did not speak. He only waited. The galaxy had forgotten humanity. But humanity had never forgotten the galaxy. This was the silence before the storm. And the storm was already here. The galaxy had entered a new age of fear. The council was broken, its unity shattered, its leaders divided. Some plotted in secret, others screamed for war, but none could ignore the truth. Humanity had risen, and with the ark standing like a shadow over the stars, no one could deny their power. Still, across the galaxy, empires struggled with the same question: fight or surrender? No one wanted to be the first to kneel. No one wanted to admit defeat. Until one empire made the choice that changed everything. The Vadran Dominion was once proud, known for its massive fleets and strict order. They had fought in the old war against humanity, sending ships that burned Earth's skies and destroyed its defenses. Now, those same leaders stared at the reports of the Ark, at the ruins of the coalition fleet, and knew they were helpless. Their fleets were already smaller after years of conflict. Their people were restless, afraid, whispering about the humans as if they were ghosts of judgment returning for vengeance. Rebellion stirred in the outer colonies, and commanders whispered of desertion. The Dominion was collapsing from within. In their grand palace on Vedra Prime, the High Regent called an emergency council of his own ministers. The chamber filled with arguments and fear. Some urged resistance, claiming that honor demanded they fight to the end. Others argued that survival was more important than pride. The regent sat in silence, listening, his face carved with worry. Finally, he rose. His voice was heavy. We cannot win. To fight humanity is to invite extinction. Our fleets will burn, our worlds will fall, and our people will suffer. I will not let our empire die for pride. We will surrender. The chamber froze. Ministers stared in disbelief, some with anger, some with relief. One shouted, "You would kneel to the ghosts you once destroyed? You would throw away centuries of dominance." But the regent silenced him with a glare. We already threw away our dominance when we underestimated them. Now we must choose survival. Better to kneel than to be ashes. His decision was final. The Vadran Dominion would surrender to humanity. A message was prepared, a transmission sent through the void directly to the Ghost Fleet. It carried the seal of the Dominion, words written with trembling dignity. To the leaders of humanity, we, the Vadran Dominion, acknowledge your power and your return. We cannot stand against you. We will not fight. We offer our surrender in exchange for mercy. Aboard the Erebus, Admiral Reyes stood silent as the message was played. His officers exchanged glances, surprised. It was the first time an empire had admitted defeat openly. Reyes' scarred face showed no joy, no celebration. He knew what this moment meant. The galaxy had finally broken. He turned to his officers and said quietly, "Prepare an answer." The humans did not respond with promises or soft words. Their reply was as cold and sharp as their warships. Your surrender is noted. You will disarm your fleets. You will deliver resources. You will serve until humanity decides otherwise. This is the price of survival. The message spread quickly. The Vadran Dominion bent its head, agreeing to every demand. Their fleets were grounded, their weapons stripped, their resources redirected to fuel the Ghost Fleet and the Arkansas. The once proud empire became the first subject of humanity's return. When news spread across the galaxy, the reaction was thunderous. Some empires gasped in disbelief, others mocked the Dominion as cowards, but deep inside, all of them felt the same fear. If the mighty Vadran Dominion could not resist, who else could? If one empire had surrendered, would others follow? The galaxy trembled as whispers spread. Humanity was not only destroying enemies, they were gaining servants. In the streets of alien worlds, Common people whispered humanity's name like a storm. Some spoke of terror, others of admiration. To the weak and oppressed, humanity was not only a destroyer, it was a force that broke the old order. Some began to dream that perhaps aligning with Earth could bring them freedom from council tyranny. Humanity was becoming more than a shadow. It was becoming a symbol. Back in the council chamber, what remained of the leaders watched with horror. The surrender of the Dominion was like a crack in the dam. Others would soon follow. If more empires bent their knee, the council would be nothing but an empty name. The chancellor of the KRYL Dominion slammed his fist down and roared, "This is treachery. If we surrender, we lose everything. If we resist, we may still survive." But his words rang hollow. Even his allies no longer believed. Meanwhile, aboard the Ark, soldiers cheered at the news. For them, it was proof that the galaxy was finally bowing before humanity. Admiral Reyes, however, did not cheer. He stood at the viewing window, his eyes on the stars, and spoke softly to Commander Hale. "This is only the beginning. They kneel because they fear our strength. But fear fades. When it fades, they will rise against us again. We must ensure they never forget why they surrendered." Hale nodded, her voice cold. "We will remind them, Admiral. With every shadow, with every strike." On Vedra Prime, the surrender ceremony was held. Human warships descended like black giants, blotting out the sun. Crowds filled the streets, silent and trembling, as soldiers of the Ghost Fleet marched through the capital. Their armor gleamed, their rifles ready, their steps echoing like thunder. At the palace gates, the High Regent himself knelt before the human envoy, offering the seal of surrender. The image was captured, broadcast across the galaxy. The sight of an alien leader bowing to humanity spread like fire. The humans accepted the seal without ceremony, their envoy speaking only one line, "You belong to Earth now." The galaxy shook. Some cursed the Dominion for weakness. Some celebrated humanity's rise. And some, quietly, began to prepare their own surrender. The balance of power was shifting faster than anyone could control. Aboard the Erebus, Admiral Reyes stood silent once more. He knew the surrender was not the end. It was only the first stone in an avalanche. The galaxy was falling, one empire at a time. And humanity was no longer asking for recognition. Humanity was taking it. The first surrender had come. Many more would follow. And with each one, the shadow of Earth grew larger across the stars. The surrender of the Vedran Dominion spread like fire across the galaxy. The image of their High Regent kneeling before humanity was replayed on every screen, whispered in every market, feared in every council hall. For centuries, the Dominion had been one of the strongest empires, feared by many. Now, it had bent its knee and handed its seal of power to the Ghost Fleet. If such an empire could fall without resistance, then who was safe? Who could still stand? In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to split. Some empires, small and fragile, looked at the Ark and saw no choice. They opened secret channels, sending messages to Admiral Reyes, each one carrying the same plea, "We surrender. Spare us. Let us serve." Their leaders told their people it was the only path to survival. Their fleets were disarmed, their resources delivered, their banners lowered. Humanity accepted their kneeling with cold silence, treating them not as allies, but as subjects. But not all chose to kneel. For every empire that surrendered, another shouted for resistance. They saw surrender as dishonor, a slow death worse than battle. The KRYL Dominion, the Drath Empire, and several others refused to bend. Their leaders declared humanity a plague, a shadow that must be destroyed no matter the cost. Propaganda filled their worlds, stirring their people with speeches of defiance. They promised that the galaxy would unite once more, that humanity's storm could still be broken if they fought together. Yet even as they spoke, doubt spread among their soldiers. Every report of the Ark, every whisper of vanished fleets, every image of black warships striking without warning, weakened their courage. Whole battalions deserted, slipping away into neutral systems. Some even defected, offering themselves to humanity for mercy. The division was not only between empires, it was within them too. Families argued, commanders doubted, people feared. The galaxy was breaking apart, piece by piece. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Once a place of order and command, it was now filled with shouting and betrayal. Half the seats were empty, abandoned by leaders who had already surrendered or fled. The remaining leaders screamed at each other, each demanding a different path. One shouted for total war. Another demanded peace talks. A third quietly suggested surrender, earning furious roars from the rest. Guards stood tense, unsure whether they were protecting the leaders or keeping them from killing one another. On one world, banners of humanity were raised by surrendering leaders. On another, crowds burned those same banners in rage, vowing to fight to the last breath. The galaxy had never been so divided. Once, the Council had united them all. Now, humanity's return had torn them into fragments. Meanwhile, aboard the Erebus, Admiral Reyes watched the reports with cold calculation. His officers spoke of the growing list of empires surrendering. Others warned of those preparing for desperate war. Reyes stood silent, his hands clasped behind his back, his scarred face unreadable. At last, he spoke. This is what they never understood. They thought unity was their strength. But unity built on fear cannot last. Now they are afraid, and their fear eats them alive. We do not need to crush them all. We only need to wait. They will destroy themselves. His words carried weight, but not all agreed. Commander Hale, standing beside him, frowned. But those who resist will fight with desperation. Desperate enemies can be dangerous. We cannot underestimate them. Reyes nodded slowly. You are right. Desperation makes them dangerous. But it also makes them reckless. And recklessness is weakness. In the shadows of the Ark, humanity prepared for the next stage. Fleets were repaired, weapons sharpened, soldiers trained harder than ever. The first surrender had given them resources, fuel, and food. The next surrenders brought more. Humanity was no longer struggling to survive. They were growing stronger with every empire that bent the knee. But in the camps of the resisting empires, other preparations were underway. The Drath Empire forged weapons that had never been seen before, desperate attempts to pierce the Ark's shields. The Kryl Dominion gathered its fleets, swearing oaths of blood to fight until the end. They knew they could not match the Ark alone, but together, perhaps they could buy time. Some whispered of a new plan, a weapon, a secret project buried deep in hidden labs, meant to rival humanity's power. Still, unity among the resistors was fragile. They argued, mistrusted, and sabotaged one another, just as the Council had before. Humanity's shadow loomed over them, and paranoia spread faster than loyalty. Spies carried every plan back to Admiral Reyes, every secret whispered in the dark reaching his ears. The galaxy was tearing itself apart. On one side, banners of Earth spread across surrendered worlds. On the other, fleets gathered in desperation, their commanders swearing never to kneel. Between them lay countless systems caught in the middle, torn by fear and indecision. Some worlds changed sides every week, their leaders betraying one side for survival only to betray the other when danger came. The stars became a battlefield not only of war but of politics, betrayal, and fear. Among the people, legends grew. Some whispered that humanity was no longer human, but something else, something born from fire and vengeance. Others believed Earth had become a force of justice, punishing the corrupt council and freeing the weak. For every tale of terror, there was a tale of hope. Humanity was becoming more than an enemy. They were becoming a myth. Back on Vedra Prime, the High Regent who had first surrendered watched as human soldiers marched through his cities. His ministers whispered that they had traded freedom for survival. He knew they were right, but he also knew they had no choice. Better to live as subjects than to die as dust. And yet, deep in his heart, even he wondered, when the humans' wrath was satisfied, would they ever allow freedom again? The galaxy held its breath. Every empire, every world, Every leader knew that the storm had only begun. Surrender had started the chain, resistance had sharpened the conflict, and now the galaxy stood on the edge of collapse. One more strike, one more battle, could decide everything. Admiral Reyes stared out at the stars, his voice calm but heavy. They are divided. Soon they will fall, one by one. And when the last one kneels, the galaxy will remember forever that Earth returned, not as a victim, but as a ruler. His officers listened in silence, knowing the next moves would decide the fate of billions. The galaxy was divided. But division was only the beginning. The galaxy trembled on the edge of collapse. Surrenders had spread like cracks across the stars, swallowing weaker empires one after another. But still, some refused to kneel. The KRYL Dominion, the Drath Empire, and a handful of others swore they would never bow to humanity, no matter the cost. They gathered fleets, forged desperate weapons, and called their people to one last stand. For them, it was not about victory anymore. It was about honor, about dying with defiance instead of living in chains. They called it the Last Armada, a fleet of more than 3,000 ships, the largest gathering since the war against humanity centuries ago. And they pointed it at the Ark. When Admiral Reyes received the reports, he did not smile. He only stood in silence, staring at the holomap. His officers waited, tense, some nervous, some eager. Commander Hale broke the silence. They are coming with everything they have. This will be the final battle. Reyes turned slowly, his scarred face calm. Then we will end it. Not with words. Not with fear. But with fire. The last armada moved like a storm across the stars, leaving scorched trails behind as it gathered. The sight of it gave hope to some across the galaxy. Crowds cheered on resistant worlds, believing perhaps humanity could finally be stopped. Others trembled, knowing that if even this armada failed, there would be nothing left to resist with. The fate of the galaxy was tied to this battle. The Ark stood waiting, silent and dark, surrounded by the ghost fleet. Human warships moved into formation, black giants against the endless void. Soldiers prepared in silence, their faces hard, their eyes steady. They knew what was coming. They knew this battle would not just decide victory, it would decide humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The clash began at the edge of a dead star system. Thousands of alien ships surged forward, their cannons lighting the void with fire. They moved with desperation, pouring everything into the attack. The Ghost Fleet answered, its guns roaring, erasing ships with brutal precision. The sky turned into a storm of fire, debris, and shattered metal. The last armada fought fiercely. For the first time, they pressed the humans back, their numbers overwhelming, their weapons striking with fury. Alien commanders shouted in triumph, believing they had found strength at last. But then, the Ark moved. The massive warship, larger than cities, awoke with a low hum that shook the void. Its core flared, bending space like water, and then its cannons fired. Entire fleets vanished in a single flash. Formations were ripped apart, ships dragged into broken space where nothing could survive. The armada screamed, their hope burning away as fast as their vessels. Still, they did not stop. They charged again and again, throwing themselves against the Arkansas. They struck its shields, they tried to pierce its armor, they hurled everything they had. But the Ark endured. It did not break. It did not fall. Humanity's weapon was more than a ship. It was a reminder of their vengeance, a shadow of all their pain forged into steel. Hours passed, and the last armada became the last wreckage. Thousands of ships reduced to burning fragments, their commanders silenced, their people watching in horror from afar. The defiance had ended in ashes. Humanity stood unbroken, their black warships drifting among the ruins of the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. In the council chamber, the news arrived. The leaders who had resisted sat frozen in silence, their pride shattered. One by one, they realized the truth. There was nothing left to fight with. No hope, no weapon, no unity. Humanity had won. The Chancellor of the KRYL Dominion, once so proud, lowered his head in despair. "It is over," he whispered. The galaxy belongs to Earth. Across surrendered worlds, banners of humanity rose higher. On resistant worlds, riots broke out, some demanding surrender, others refusing to accept defeat. But no matter the anger, no matter the denial, all knew the same truth. The war was over. Humanity had returned, and no one could stop them. Aboard the Erebus, Admiral Reyes stood at the viewing window once again, watching the wreckage drift across the void. His officers cheered, but Reyes remained silent. He knew this was more than victory. This was a reckoning. He had led humanity not just to survival, but to domination. Yet in his heart, there was no joy, only the weight of what had been done. He whispered softly, as if to the stars themselves, "You planned our end. You burned our home. But you forgot, Earth endures." Commander Hale stepped beside him, her voice firm. "The galaxy is ours now. What will we do with it?" Reyes turned, his scar catching the light, his eyes cold but steady. "We will rule it. We will make sure they never forget what happens when they raise their hands against us. And we will build a future where humanity is no longer the hunted, but the master of the stars." And so it was. The galaxy had planned humanity's end, but Earth's warships had brought fear instead. Fear that broke empires. Fear that shattered unity. Fear that burned fleets and forced leaders to kneel. In the ashes of war, the humans stood tall, their black ships casting shadows across the stars. The galaxy would never forget. Humanity had returned. Humanity had endured. Humanity had conquered. The reckoning was complete.